She was just a terrified kid hiding behind a Harley, praying the stranger wouldn't notice. But the biker leader saw her, and when her stepdad came to drag her back, he quietly said 5 words that changed everything: "You touch her again, you'll regret it." What she didn't know was that this group of road-worn bikers had just made her family, and they never abandoned their own. The rain wasn't heavy, but it was cold enough to bite. Lena's breath came in sharp gasps as her sneakers slapped against the wet pavement. Too big. Everything was too big: the shoes, the fear, the night itself. She'd learned to run quiet. 3 months of living with him had taught her that much. Behind her, somewhere in the maze of back alleys and shuttered shops, his voice still echoed. "Lena. Get back here, you ungrateful little." The rest dissolved into the hiss of rain and distance. Her backpack bounced against her shoulders. Inside, a change of clothes, her mother's scarf that still smelled like lavender, and a photograph she couldn't bear to leave behind. That was it. Everything that mattered in the world, crammed into a child's purple backpack with a broken zipper. The town's edge came into view, a lonely stretch of road where the streetlights gave up and the wilderness began. And there, glowing like a beacon in the drizzle, sat Rusty's diner. Not the fancy kind. The kind with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like burnt hope. But right now, it looked like salvation. More importantly, parked in a neat row outside like gleaming metal soldiers, were 6 motorcycles. Harleys. Lena had seen them before, rolling through town in formation, their engines roaring like thunder. People moved aside. Some waved. Others whispered. But everyone noticed. She didn't think. Thinking was a luxury she'd lost the night Mom died. She just moved. Her small frame slipped between the bikes until she found the biggest one, jet black with chrome that caught the diner's neon glow. She wedged herself behind it, pulling her knees to her chest, making herself as small as possible. The engine block was still warm. It felt like a living thing protecting her. Seconds passed. Or maybe minutes. Time felt broken. Then, headlights. His truck. Lena pressed her palm against her mouth to muffle her breathing. The truck slowed, crawling past the diner like a predator hunting prey. She could see his silhouette through the rain-streaked windshield, head turning, scanning. Her heart hammered so loud she was sure he could hear it. The truck stopped. No. Please, no. But then, the diner door swung open, and the world changed. They came out in a group, 6 of them, leather jackets slick with rain, boots heavy on the pavement. They weren't loud. They weren't rowdy. They moved with the quiet confidence of people who'd seen enough of life to not be impressed by much anymore. The man in front was older, maybe 50, with silver threading through his beard and eyes that looked like they'd stared down longer roads than most people would ever travel. A patch on his jacket read, "Rex," in worn embroidery. Behind him came the others, a massive man with arms like tree trunks, a woman with short gray hair and a scar across her eyebrow, a younger guy with tattooed hands, and 2 more whose faces Lena couldn't quite see. The truck's engine revved. Then, as if deciding this wasn't the right moment, it rolled forward and disappeared around the corner. Lena exhaled. But she couldn't move. Couldn't stand. Her legs had turned to water. "All right, Bear, settle the tab with Rusty. Storm's getting worse and I want to hit Route 9 before." Rex stopped mid-sentence. He'd seen her. Lena's eyes went wide. She tried to make herself smaller, but there was nowhere left to go. Rex raised a hand, stopping his crew in their tracks. They went silent instantly, no questions, no movement. Just waiting. Slowly, carefully, Rex approached. He didn't tower over her or use his size. Instead, he knelt down on one knee in the rain, bringing himself to her level. His eyes were brown, warm, and impossibly kind. "You okay, kid?" 3 words. That's all it took for something inside Lena to crack. She shook her head. No. She wasn't okay. She hadn't been okay in so long she'd forgotten what okay felt like. You hiding from someone? Rex's voice was barely above a whisper, like they were sharing a secret. Lena nodded. Someone you're scared of? Another nod. Smaller this time. Rex glanced back at his crew, then returned his gaze to her. What's your name? Lena, she whispered. Her voice sounded strange, like it belonged to someone else. Lena. That's a good name, Rex smiled, just a little. I'm Rex. That big guy over there looking worried? That's Bear. And the lady who could probably arm wrestle a grizzly? That's Mama Joe. We're just passing through, but, he paused, reading something in her eyes. You look like you could use some help. Please don't make me go back, the words tumbled out before she could stop them. Rex's expression shifted, something dark and protective flickered across his face. Go back where, sweetheart? Before Lena could answer, the sound of an engine shattered the moment. The truck. It was coming back. Rex stood smoothly, positioning himself between Lena and the road. The other bikers moved without being asked, forming a loose semicircle, casual, unthreatening, but unmistakably deliberate. The truck pulled into the lot, too fast, too aggressive. The door flew open and he stepped out, her stepdad, Dale. He'd changed since Mom died. Or maybe he'd always been this way and Mom had been the shield Lena hadn't known she needed. There you are. Dale's voice was drenched in false relief, the kind that made Lena's stomach turn. I've been looking everywhere. Come on, we need to get you home. You're gonna catch pneumonia out here. He started toward her, but Rex didn't move. Hold up there, friend. Rex's tone was still polite, but something had changed, something in the way he stood, the way the air around him seemed to solidify. Kid seems pretty scared. Dale's expression flickered, annoyance, quickly masked. She's my niece. Got some behavioral issues. Runs off when she doesn't get her way. You know how kids are. Lena's blood ran cold. Niece. He was already lying. Bear, the massive biker, took a small step forward. Funny. Kid don't look like she's throwing a tantrum. Looks more like she's terrified. Dale's jaw tightened. Look, I appreciate your concern, but this is a family matter. Lena, come here. Now. He reached for her arm. What happened next occurred so fast that later, Lena would struggle to remember the exact sequence. Rex's hand, not aggressive, not violent, simply intercepted Dale's wrist in midair. The grip was firm enough to stop the motion completely. You touch her again, Rex said, his voice dropping to something quiet and absolutely final, and you'll regret it for whatever time you got left. Dale yanked his hand back, eyes flashing. You threatening me? Stating a fact. The standoff might have escalated, but salvation arrived in the form of flashing lights. A state trooper's cruiser pulled into the lot, drawn by the commotion. And in that moment, with red and blue light washing over everything, Lena saw something she'd never forget, the way Dale's confident mask slipped, just for a second, before he turned to face the trooper with a manufactured smile. But Rex had seen it too. And Lena realized, for the first time in months, that maybe, just maybe, someone was finally paying attention. The trooper was young, maybe late 20s, with a jawline that suggested he took his job seriously. His nameplate read, Collins. He surveyed the scene with practiced eyes, the bikers, the wet kid hiding behind a Harley, the agitated man who was talking too fast. Everything all right here? Collins directed the question at Rex, not Dale. Dale jumped in before anyone could answer. Officer, thank God. These men are preventing me from taking my niece home. She has issues. Runs away when she gets upset. Her therapist warned us this might happen. Lena felt sick. He'd built an entire story. How long had he been preparing these lies? Collins turned to Lena. That true, honey? This your uncle? Her mouth opened, but no sound came. The words were there, he's not my uncle, he's lying, please help me, but they stayed trapped behind her teeth, locked in place by 3 months of learning what happened when she said the wrong thing. Kid's been through a lot, Dale continued, his voice dripping with false sympathy. Lost her mom, my sister, a few months back. Been living with me since. It's been an adjustment. That part was true. Mom was gone. And that truth made everything else sound believable. But Rex, still positioned between Dale and Lena, spoke up. Officer Collins, I've got a question. If this is your niece and you're so concerned, why were you driving around yelling threats into the night? We heard you about 10 minutes ago. Didn't sound like a worried relative. Sounded like someone hunting something. Dale's face flushed. I was frustrated. You ever tried to find a child in the rain? I was scared she'd. What's her middle name? Mama Joe's voice cut through like a knife. Dale blinked. What? Your niece. What's her middle name? When's her birthday? What's she allergic to? Mama Joe crossed her arms, her scarred eyebrow raised in challenge. My nieces? I could tell you their favorite color, their stuffed animal's name, what they eat for breakfast. You know, family stuff. The silence that followed was devastating. Dale's mouth worked, searching. We're not. I'm new to this guardian thing. Her mother didn't share everything before she. Before she what? Rex's voice was gentle but relentless. Died? Seems like something you'd sort out, being family and all. Collins pulled out a notepad, his expression shifting from routine to interested. Sir, what's your name? Dale Pritchard. Look, I've got documentation at home. Birth certificates, custody papers. Custody papers? Bear rumbled. Thought you said she was your niece. Why would you need custody papers for family? Dale's story was unraveling in real time, threads pulling loose with each question. Lena watched, barely breathing, as the man who'd made her life hell for 3 months scrambled to hold his lies together. Officer, can I speak with the child? Alone? Collins crouched down, his voice softening. Just you and me. Would that be okay? Lena looked at Rex. She didn't know why, she'd only met him 15 minutes ago, but something in his steady presence made her feel less alone. Rex nodded encouragingly. It's okay, Lena. Tell him what you need to tell him. Collins led her a few feet away, near the diner's entrance where the overhang kept the rain off. Behind them, she could hear Dale's voice rising, insistent, while Bear and Mama Joe asked more questions that clearly had no good answers. Lena, is that man your uncle? Collins asked quietly. She shook her head. Who is he? My stepdad, her voice was barely audible. Mom married him last year. Then she got sick. And then, she couldn't finish. Collins' expression darkened with understanding. Has he hurt you? He gets angry. Breaks things. Says I'm the reason Mom got sick, that I'm expensive, that he never wanted, the words caught in her throat. Okay. Okay, sweetheart, Collins stood, his hand resting briefly on her shoulder, not grabbing, just there. Solid. You did good telling me. When they returned to the group, Collins' entire demeanor had changed. Mr. Pritchard, I'm going to need you to come down to the station. We've got some questions about living arrangements and... This is ridiculous. Dale's composure finally shattered. She's a liar. A troubled little liar who's been nothing but problems since. Since her mother died? Rex's voice was cold now, the warmth completely gone. Funny how kids become problems when they're grieving and scared. Dale lunged forward, trying one last time to grab Lena's arm. "You're coming home, you little..." He never finished the sentence. Bear moved with surprising speed for such a large man, stepping smoothly into Dale's path. Not touching him, just existing in his space, a wall of muscle and leather and absolute refusal. "No," Bear said simply. "She's not." Colin's hand went to his belt. "Mr. Pritchard, step back. Now. We can do this easy or we can do it complicated, but that child isn't going anywhere with you tonight." For a moment, everything balanced on a knife's edge. Then Dale seemed to deflate, all the anger draining into something uglier, resentment and defeat. "Fine. Fine. Take her. See how you like dealing with her." He jabbed a finger at Lena. "You're gonna end up in some state home, you know that? Nobody wants a kid like you." The words hit like a physical blow. But Rex knelt down again, his hand gentle on Lena's shoulder. "Hey. Look at me, not him." She did. "He's wrong," Rex said quietly. "And we're gonna prove it." The state trooper's office was small, fluorescent lit, and smelled like burnt coffee and old paperwork. Lena sat on a plastic chair that was too big for her, wrapped in a blanket someone had pulled from a supply closet. Through the glass partition, she could see Collins on the phone, his expression grave. Rex sat beside her, his leather jacket creaking softly every time he moved. The others waited outside, she could see them through the window, standing by their bikes in the rain like patient sentinels. "What happens now?" Lena whispered. "Now? Collins does his job. Calls Child Protective Services, starts a case file. Dale's not taking you anywhere, that much is certain." Rex leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "But kid, I'm gonna level with you. The system. It takes time. And tonight, they're gonna want to place you somewhere safe while they sort things out. A foster home," the words tasted like ash. "Emergency placement, probably. Just temporary, until they send me back to him." Lena had heard the stories at school. Kids who ran away and got returned like packages to the wrong address. The system didn't always listen. Didn't always see. "That won't happen," Rex's voice was firm. "I promise you that." "You can't promise that. You're just..." She trailed off, unsure how to finish. "Just a stranger. Just someone passing through. Just another person who'll leave." Rex pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts, and dialed. "Yeah, hi. I need to talk to Casey. Tell her it's Rex." "Yeah, I'll hold." He glanced at Lena. "My cousin. She's a social worker up in Ridgefield. About 3 hours north. She's tough, smart, and she actually gives a damn." Lena wanted to believe him. Wanted it so badly it hurt. "Casey?" "Yeah, it's me. Listen, I've got a situation." Rex stood, walking a few feet away as he explained everything in low, urgent tones. Lena caught fragments: stepdad, neglect, scared out of her mind, what are our options? When he returned, his expression was a mixture of frustration and determination. "Casey's out of state at a conference until Thursday. But she's making calls, pulling strings. She says she can have proper placement arranged by week's end, somewhere safe, vetted, with people who know what they're doing. That's 4 days away." "I know." Rex ran a hand through his rain-damp hair. "Collins says they'll put you in county emergency housing tonight. It's not ideal, but..." "Dale has friends." Lena's voice was hollow. "He drinks with the deputy sheriff. They go fishing. He'll find out where they put me." Rex's jaw tightened. "Then we don't make it easy for him." 30 minutes later, after a conversation with Collins that involved raised voices, paperwork, and Rex making several more phone calls, an arrangement emerged. It was unconventional. technically questionable. But Collins, seeing the fear in Lena's eyes and recognizing genuine concern when he saw it, allowed it. The motorcycle club was heading to a charity event in Pinewood, 2 towns over, beyond Dale's immediate reach. They'd be gone for 3 days, raising money for veterans programs. Rex convinced Collins that Lena would be safer with them, constantly moving, surrounded by witnesses, impossible to corner, than sitting in a county facility where anyone could look up her location. "This is highly irregular," Collins warned. "I'm documenting everything." "And Rex? If anything happens to her?" "It won't." Rex extended his hand. "You have my word." Collins shook it, then handed Rex a card. "My personal cell. Any trouble, any concern, you call me immediately." As they walked out into the night, Lena realized she was trembling, not from cold, but from the enormity of what was happening. Her entire life had shattered and reformed in the span of a few hours. Bear stood by his motorcycle, and attached to it was something Lena hadn't noticed before, a sidecar. Vintage, well-maintained, with a small windscreen and a leather seat. "Used to take my daughter in this," Bear explained, his gruff voice gentler than before. "Before she got too cool for her old man. Safest way to ride." Mama Joe appeared with a stuffed bunny, worn, loved, with one ear slightly shorter than the other. "Found this in my saddlebag. His name's Clutch. He's been on more miles than most people dream of seeing. Figured you two should meet." Lena took the bunny, clutching it to her chest. When was the last time someone had given her something without wanting something in return? "All right, Road Angels," Rex called out, using what was apparently the club's name. "We've got weather moving in and a schedule to keep. Let's roll." As Bear helped Lena into the sidecar, securing a helmet on her head and tucking a waterproof blanket around her legs, she looked up at him. "Why are you doing this?" Bear paused, then smiled, a real smile that transformed his intimidating features into something almost paternal. "Because someone's gotta. And tonight? That someone's us." The engines roared to life, one by one, a symphony of chrome and thunder. Lena clutched the bunny tighter as they pulled onto the highway. For the first time in months, she wasn't running away from something. She was riding towards something better. The rain had stopped by the time they reached Clearwater Lake, leaving the world smelling like wet earth and pine. The rest stop wasn't much, a gravel lot, some picnic tables, and a fire pit ringed with stones, but after 2 hours on the road, it felt like paradise. Lena's legs wobbled when she climbed out of the sidecar. Her whole body vibrated from the engine's rumble, a sensation that was both strange and oddly comforting. Like the motorcycle had hummed all her scattered pieces back together. "First long ride?" Mama Joe asked, steadying her with a hand. Lena nodded. "You'll get your road legs soon enough. Come on, let's get you warm." While Rex and another biker named Sketch worked on starting a fire, Bear rummaged through his saddlebag and produced an impressive array of snacks, beef jerky, trail mix, packages of cookies that looked homemade. "Your wife make those?" the tattooed biker, whose name was apparently tiny despite being 6'3", asked hopefully. "My wife couldn't bake to save her soul. These are from Ruthie at the bakery back home. She always loads me up before runs." Bear tossed him a package. "Share with the kid." Lena found herself sitting on a log between Mama Joe and Tiny, the fire crackling to life in front of them. The flames cast dancing shadows across their faces, making them look less like the intimidating strangers from the diner and more like people. Just people who happen to ride motorcycles and save scared kids on rainy nights. "So," Sketch said, poking at the fire with a stick, "worst bike mishap?" "Go." "Oh no," Bear groaned. "Not this again." "Yes, this again. It's tradition." Sketch turned to Lena with a conspiratorial grin. "See, kid, every time we camp, we tell stories. Keeps things interesting. And Bear's got the best 1 inch." It's not the best one. Tell it. Mama Joe and Tiny shouted in unison. Bear sighed dramatically, but Lena could see he was smiling. Fine. So, 3 years ago, I'm riding through Nebraska. Middle of nowhere. And this dog, this absolutely massive golden retriever, decides my bike is the most interesting thing he's ever seen. He chased you? Lena asked quietly. Chased me? Kid, he escorted me. For 7 miles. I'd speed up, he'd speed up. I'd slow down, thinking he'd get tired, and he'd just trot alongside like we were best friends going on a Sunday ride together. Tiny was already laughing. Tell her about the farmer. I'm getting there. So finally, I stop at a gas station. The dog stops. Sits right next to my bike, panting, looking absolutely pleased with himself. And this farmer pulls up in a truck and says, Bear affected a drawling accent, "Oh, that's Gerald. He likes motorcycles. Hope he wasn't a bother." Gerald? Lena felt a smile tugging at her lips despite everything. Gerald, the motorcycle-chasing dog. Apparently, he did this to everyone passing through. The farmer just let him. Said it made Gerald happy. The group dissolved into laughter, sharing their own animal encounter stories. Sketch had been followed by a determined turkey in Arkansas. Mama Joe once had a cat hitchhike in her saddlebag for 40 miles before she discovered it. Lena listened, the warmth of the fire seeping into her bones. Clutch the bunny sat in her lap, and she absently stroked its worn fur. The conversation flowed around her like a river, easy and natural, and slowly, very slowly, she felt something inside her unclenching. What about you, Rex? Tiny asked. You've been awful quiet. Rex, who'd been checking his phone periodically, looked up. Me? I once got a ticket for speeding from my own mother. Your mother's a cop? Lena asked, surprised. Was. Retired now. But yeah, she pulled me over doing 70 in a 45. Gave me the full lecture about responsibility and setting examples, then handed me the ticket and said, I'll see you at Sunday dinner. Bring dessert. Did you fight it? Sketch asked. Hell no. I paid it and brought her favorite pie. You don't argue with Mom. The laughter this time was warm, familial. Lena realized these people weren't just a motorcycle club, they were family. The kind that chose each other, that showed up when it mattered. Can I ask something? Lena's voice was small but audible. Anything, kid, Rex said. Do you ever get scared? The question hung in the air for a moment. The fire popped, sending sparks spiraling upward. Rex leaned forward, his expression serious but kind. Every time someone counts on me and I can't mess it up. That's all the time, then. Pretty much, he smiled gently. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared, Lena. It means you're scared and you do the right thing anyway. Mama Joe nudged her shoulder. You ran tonight. Hid. Asked for help. That took guts. I was terrified. Exactly, Bear's deep voice was matter-of-fact. And you did it anyway. That's the definition of brave, kid. Later, after the fire had burned down to embers and the others had drifted toward their sleeping bags, Bear showed Lena how to clean the bikes properly. He handed her a soft cloth and demonstrated the gentle circular motions needed for the chrome. Like this? She asked, carefully wiping a mirror. Perfect. You're a natural. As she worked, concentrating on making the metal shine, something extraordinary happened. She laughed. Just a small sound, barely more than a breath, but real and genuine. Bear heard it and caught Mama Joe's eye across the campsite. The older woman nodded slightly, a quiet acknowledgement passing between them. The sound of healing, however faint, had begun. Morning arrived with mist rolling off the lake and the smell of coffee brewing over a camp stove. Lena woke curled in a sleeping bag that smelled like campfire and leather, clutched the bunny tucked under her chin. For one blissful moment, she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back. Rex was already up, phone pressed to his ear, pacing near the bikes. His voice was low, but the tension in his shoulders was obvious. Mama Jo sat nearby, nursing a cup of coffee and watching him with concerned eyes. "Yeah, I understand the complications, but..." "No, I get it. Just, look, can you at least check? Please." Rex ran a hand over his face. "All right. Thanks, Davis. I owe you." He hung up and stood there for a moment, staring at the phone like it might offer answers it hadn't already given. "Problem?" Mama Jo asked quietly. "Maybe." Davis did some digging. "He's got a buddy in the sheriff's department back in Millbrook." Rex glanced toward where Lena was pretending to still be asleep. "The mother, Sarah Pritchard, died 4 months ago. Liver disease. And Dale Pritchard isn't just neglectful, he's got a record." "What kind of record?" 2 complaints filed by neighbors in the past 2 months. Noise disturbances, suspected child welfare issues. But nothing was ever followed up on. Both complaints mysteriously closed with insufficient evidence. Mama Jo's expression darkened. "His fishing buddy, the deputy." "That'd be my guess." Rex's jaw tightened. The system failed her before she ever ran. Those complaints should have triggered home visits, investigations. Instead, they got buried. Lena sat up, giving up the pretense of sleep. "What does that mean?" Rex turned, his expression softening when he saw her. "Morning, kid. It means we're making sure the right people know what's really going on. No more things getting swept under the rug." After a breakfast of granola bars and fruit that Sketch had packed, Rex made another call, this time on speaker so everyone could hear. His cousin Casey's voice came through, professional but warm. "Rex, I've got good news and complicated news. The good news is I've found a placement option, the Hendersons, they're experienced foster parents in Ridgefield. Good people. But the complicated part is getting the jurisdiction transfer approved. Dale Pritchard technically has legal custody, and until a judge reviews the case." "How long?" Rex interrupted. "Hearing scheduled for Friday. 3 days. I've expedited everything I can, but the courts move at their own pace." "And until then?" A pause. "Until then, she needs to stay in protective custody." "But Rex, your temporary arrangement with Trooper Collins. It's not going to hold much longer. If anyone challenges it, let them try." Rex's voice was steel. After the call ended, Lena found herself helping Bear pack up the campsite. She folded sleeping bags, organized gear, trying to make herself useful. Trying not to think about Friday, about courts and judges and the possibility that paperwork and procedure might send her back to Dale's house. "You're thinking too loud," Bear observed, securing a bag to his bike. "What if the judge doesn't believe me? What if Dale lies again and they think?" "Kid," Bear stopped what he was doing and crouched down to her level. "You see these bikes? Every single one of them has broken down at some point. Chain snaps, engine trouble, flat tire in the middle of nowhere. And you know what we do?" Lena shook her head. "We fix it. We don't leave each other stranded on the road. Ever. That's the code." He tapped her shoulder gently. "You're one of us now. We don't abandon our own." The word settled over her like a blanket. One of us. They stopped at a gas station an hour later, and while the others filled their tanks and grabbed supplies, Rex disappeared to make more calls. Lena sat on a bench outside, watching him pace back and forth, his expression growing darker with each conversation. When he finally returned, Mama Jo asked what she'd been too afraid to. "What did you find?" "Dale's been busy. He filed a report this morning claiming I kidnapped Lena. Says he's pressing charges. Rex's voice was calm, but Lena could hear the anger simmering beneath. He's trying to force our hand, make us bring her back. That's insane. Tiny exploded. Collins knows the truth. Collins knows. But Dale's playing dirty, using his connections. He's making enough noise that other departments are getting involved. Politics, jurisdiction disputes, it's turning into a mess. Lena felt her chest tighten. Maybe I should just go back. I don't want you to get in trouble because of me. I don't want. Hey, Rex knelt in front of her, his hands on her shoulders. Look at me, Lena. You listening? She nodded, eyes burning. There's a big difference between leaving someone and letting go of hurt. Leaving? That's what cowards do. But letting go of hurt, that's what survivors do. And kid, you're a survivor. His voice dropped, gentle but firm. We're not letting him win. Not now. Not ever. But what if? No, what ifs? We've got evidence now. We've got Collins' report, Casey working the system, and a whole crew of witnesses who saw what Dale really is. Friday, we go to that hearing, and we make sure the truth comes out. Sketch appeared with an armful of snacks. Also, I called my sister. She's a paralegal. She's sending over documentation on how to handle custody disputes, and she's got a lawyer friend who owes her a favor. We're building a wall, Mama Jo added. Made of facts, witnesses, and people who actually give a damn. Dale wants to play games? We'll show him what happens when you mess with the road angels. For the first time since overhearing Rex's phone calls, Lena felt the fear loosen its grip. These people barely knew her, but they were fighting for her like she mattered. Like she was worth saving. The charity event was bigger than Lena expected. Pinewood's Main Street had been blocked off, transformed into a festival of chrome and leather. Hundreds of motorcycles lined both sides of the road, their owners milling about with coffee cups and conversation. Banners proclaimed Veterans Relief Fund Ride and Heroes on Wheels. Children ran past with face paint and balloon animals. A local band played classic rock on a small stage. The smell of barbecue and funnel cakes drifted through the air. It felt almost normal, the kind of event Lena might have attended with her mom, back when life made sense. Stay close, Rex instructed, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder as they walked through the crowd. We've got a booth to help set up, some raffles to run. You can help Mama Jo with tickets if you want, or just hang out. Whatever feels comfortable. Lena chose to help. Staying busy kept her mind from wandering to Friday's hearing, to Dale's accusations, to all the ways this fragile safety could collapse. She was arranging raffle prizes, motorcycle parts, gift certificates, a hand-painted leather jacket, when the atmosphere changed. It was subtle at first, conversations dropping off, heads turning, a ripple of tension moving through the crowd. Then she saw him. Dale stood at the edge of the event, flanked by two uniformed officers. Not Trooper Collins, these were local Pinewood police, and they looked uncomfortable, like they'd been dragged into something they didn't fully understand. Lena's hands froze on a prize basket. Her breath caught. Rex had seen them too. He moved immediately, positioning himself between Dale and Lena, his crew closing ranks without needing instruction. Bear, Mama Jo, Tiny, and Sketch formed a loose protective circle. That's him, Dale announced loudly, pointing at Rex. That's the man who kidnapped my daughter. The word daughter hit Lena like a slap. Not stepdaughter. Not even niece. He was escalating his lies. One of the officers, a younger man with uncertain eyes, stepped forward. Sir, we need you to come with us. There's been a report. I'm aware of the report, Rex said calmly, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet crowd. Because it's fabricated. Officer, your name? Martinez. Officer Martinez, I've got documentation from Trooper Collins of the Millbrook State Police. I've got witness statements. I've got call records to Child Protective Services. And I've got that little girl's testimony." Rex's voice never rose, but it commanded absolute attention. "What I don't have is any legal obligation to hand her over to a man with a history of neglect complaints and no biological relation to her. He's lying." Dale's voice cracked with desperation. "I'm her legal guardian. I have custody." "Temporary custody," Mama Jo interjected, stepping forward with her phone. "Granted after her mother's death. But that custody is currently under review due to multiple welfare concerns. I've got the case number right here, filed by Casey Morrison, licensed social worker with the state." The second officer, older and clearly more experienced, held up a hand. "Everyone just calm down. We can sort this out without." "There's nothing to sort out." Dale pushed forward, trying to get to Lena. "She's mine. You can't just steal someone's kid." "She's not your kid," a voice called from the crowd. Everyone turned. An elderly woman in a Road Angels t-shirt stepped forward, her face set with determination. "I'm Margaret Hendricks. I've lived next door to Dale Pritchard for 18 months. I filed one of those complaints they're talking about. I heard screaming, breaking glass, a child crying. When I called the police, nothing happened. The deputy told me to mind my own business." Another voice joined in, "I teach at Millbrook Elementary. That girl came to school with bruises. She said she fell, but," a middle-aged man pushed through the crowd, addressing Officer Martinez directly. "We reported it. Nothing came of it." More people stepped forward. A grocery store clerk who'd seen Dale berate Lena in public. A neighbor who'd witnessed him dragging her by the arm to his truck. One by one, they spoke up, voices that had been ignored, silenced, or dismissed. Dale's face transformed from righteous anger to something uglier, panic. "This is a setup," he shouted. "You're all lying. She's a troubled child who needs discipline, and these people," he gestured wildly at the bikers, "are manipulating her." "Funny thing about lies," Rex said quietly, pulling out his phone. "They fall apart under scrutiny. Officer Martinez, would you like to hear the voicemail Dale left me at 3 a.m. last night? The one where he threatens violence if I don't return his property?" He emphasized the last word. "Because people aren't property. And children definitely aren't." Martinez and his partner exchanged glances. The older officer spoke into his radio, requesting backup and possibly a supervisor. A reporter from the local paper had appeared, camera out, documenting everything. The charity event had become something else entirely, a public reckoning. Dale must have sensed it too. His bravado crumbled. "You don't understand. I took her in when nobody else would. Fed her, clothed her. You cashed her Social Security survivor benefits and spent them on yourself," Mama Jo cut in. "We checked. $800 a month that should have gone to her care. Want to explain where that money went?" The color drained from Dale's face. It was over. Everyone present could see it. The lies, the manipulation, the hidden abuse, all of it exposed under the unforgiving light of public attention. Officer Martinez's supervisor arrived within minutes, a stern woman who took one look at the scene and began asking Dale very pointed questions that he couldn't answer. Rex knelt beside Lena, blocking her view of Dale being questioned. "You okay?" She wasn't, not really. But she nodded anyway. "It's done, kid," Rex said softly. "He can't touch you now." 3 weeks later, Lena stood in the driveway of a 2-story house painted pale yellow with white shutters. Flower boxes lined the windows, and a tire swing hung from an oak tree in the front yard. It looked like something from a storybook, the kind of home she'd stopped believing existed. The Hendersons were exactly as Casey had described, warm, patient, and experienced. Martha Henderson had kind eyes and laugh lines. Her husband, Paul, had shown Lena the room that would be hers, painted soft blue with a window overlooking the garden, already furnished with a desk, bookshelf, and a bed covered in a quilt that Martha had made herself. "You can decorate however you'd like," Martha had said. "This is your space, Lena. Your safe space." The hearing had been swift once everything came to light. Dale's custody was revoked. He faced charges for fraud, child endangerment, and misuse of benefits. The deputy who'd buried the complaints was under investigation. The system that had failed Lena was finally, slowly, beginning to correct itself. But now came the hard part, saying goodbye. Rex's motorcycle rumbled to a stop outside the Henderson house. Behind him, the rest of the road angels formed a line: Bear, Mama Joe, Tiny, Sketch, and 3 others who'd joined them for the occasion. They'd ridden 2 hours to be here, taking time off work, rearranging schedules, because this mattered. Because she mattered. Lena walked down the porch steps, clutched the bunny tucked under one arm. She'd grown comfortable in this house over the past few weeks, but part of her heart still lived on the open road, in sidecar rides and campfire stories. "There she is," Bear said, his gruff voice suspiciously thick. "Our little road warrior." They'd brought her something. Mama Joe held a package wrapped in brown paper and twine. "We wanted to give you this. Something to remember us by. Not that we think you'll forget, but—" Lena unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a leather jacket, child-sized, perfectly crafted, with patches sewn onto the back. One read, "Road Angels," in silver thread. Below it, another patch proclaimed, "No child rides alone." Her eyes burned. She pressed the jacket to her chest, breathing in the smell of leather and possibility. "It's the club's first kid-sized jacket," Sketch explained. "You're officially an honorary member. That means something. That means family." "Try it on," Tiny urged. The jacket fit perfectly, the leather soft and supple. Lena looked down at the patches, running her fingers over the careful stitching. Someone had spent hours making this. For her. Rex knelt down, adjusting the collar. "There's rules that come with wearing that patch. Want to hear them?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Rule 1, you're never alone. No matter where you go, what happens, you've got people who care. Rule 2, you look out for others the way we looked out for you. The kindness doesn't stop here, you pass it forward. And Rule 3, he smiled gently. You keep being brave. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Will I see you again?" The question came out smaller than she intended, childlike and afraid. "Count on it. We ride through Ridgefield every spring. There's a Veterans Memorial Service here in May. We never miss it." Rex placed a hand on her shoulder. "And kid? You've got my number. You need anything, anything at all, you call. Day or night. That's not an empty promise." Bear pulled out a pen and wrote his number on her hand. Then Mama Joe did the same. One by one, they inscribed their phone numbers on her palm and wrist like tattoos of connection. "You're stuck with us now," Mama Joe said, her scarred face breaking into a genuine smile. "Hope you realize what you've gotten yourself into." Paul Henderson stepped out onto the porch, sensing the moment needed gentle interruption. "We're getting lunch ready. You folks are welcome to stay, if you'd like." The bikers exchanged glances. Rex shook his head. "We appreciate it, but we've got miles to cover. Rain coming in tonight, and we need to beat it home." One by one, they hugged Lena goodbye. Bear's hug lifted her completely off the ground. Mama Joe pressed a kiss to her forehead. Sketch ruffled her hair. Tiny gave her a rock he'd found, for good luck. "It's from Montana. That's where tough things come from." Rex was last. He held her for a long moment, and Lena felt tears finally spill over, tears she'd been holding back since that rainy night at the diner. "Thank you," she whispered into his jacket. "For saving me. Kid, you saved yourself. We just gave you a ride," he pulled back, looking her in the eyes. "You remember that, okay? You're the brave one. We just showed up." She reached into her pocket and pulled out something she'd been working on for days, a bracelet made from links of old bike chain, polished smooth and connected with small bolts. She'd found the materials in Paul's garage and spent hours getting it right. "For keeping your promise," she said, fastening it around Rex's wrist. He stared at it, clearly moved. "I'll wear this until the day I die." The engine started one by one, that familiar thunder that no longer meant danger but protection, not fear but freedom. Lena stood in the driveway, wearing her jacket, watching them prepare to leave. Rex swung his leg over his bike, then paused. "Hey, Lena." "Yeah? Keep the road alive, okay? Whatever that means for you. Just keep moving forward." "I will." And she meant it. 5 years later. The community center in Ridgefield was packed, filled with social workers, foster families, volunteers, and teenagers whose lives had been touched by the youth outreach program. Banners hung from the ceiling, breaking chains, supporting runaway and at-risk youth. 15-year-old Lena stood backstage, smoothing down the front of her dress, a simple navy blue one that Martha had helped her pick out. Her hands trembled slightly, but not from fear. From anticipation. From the weight of words she'd been preparing to say for weeks. "You're going to be amazing," Martha whispered, squeezing her shoulder. Over 5 years, Martha had become more than a foster mother. She was simply mom now, in all the ways that mattered. Paul stood nearby with his camera ready, beaming with pride. "We'll be right in the front row." The program coordinator, a woman named Diane, peeked through the curtain. "Lena? You're up in 2 minutes." Lena nodded, taking a deep breath. She touched the chain-link bracelet on her wrist, a matching one to the one she'd given Rex years ago. She'd made this one for herself last year, a reminder of where she'd been and how far she'd traveled. The introduction came, her name called, and she walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, but she could see faces in the crowd, people who'd come to hear stories of survival and hope. "Hi," she began, her voice steady. "My name is Lena Pritchard Henderson, and 5 years ago, I ran away from the person who was supposed to protect me." She told her story. Not all of it, some pieces were still too private, too tender, but enough. She spoke about fear, about hiding behind a motorcycle in the rain, about strangers who became saviors. She talked about the system that failed her and the people who caught her when she fell through the cracks. "People ask me what changed my life," Lena continued, her voice growing stronger. "They want to know if it was therapy, or finding a good home, or time. And yes, those things helped. But what really changed everything was one moment, when someone knelt down in the rain and asked if I was okay. Not, 'What's wrong with you?' or 'Why are you causing trouble?' just, 'Are you okay?'" She paused, letting the words settle over the audience. That's all it takes sometimes. One person who sees you. One person who believes you. One person who refuses to look away. Her eyes scanned the crowd. "I'm standing here today because a group of bikers, people society often judges before knowing, chose to protect a scared kid they didn't have to care about. They taught me that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up when everyone else disappears." The speech continued for another few minutes, ending with resources for helping at-risk youth and a challenge to the audience: be the person who asks if someone's okay. Be the person who doesn't look away. You might save a life. The applause was thunderous. As Lena stepped off stage, her heart pounding with relief and exhilaration, Diane caught her arm. "That was incredible. Truly. And Lena? There are some people outside who wanted to surprise you. Outside? Diane smiled mysteriously. Go see. Lena walked through the community center's back corridor and pushed open the rear exit door. The late afternoon sun hit her face, warm and golden. And then she heard it, a sound that sent recognition flooding through her entire body. The rumble of motorcycles. They were lined up in the parking lot, 6 Harleys, chrome gleaming in the spring sunshine. And standing beside them, older now, grayer, but unmistakably the same, were the road angels. Rex. Lena broke into a run, her dress shoes slapping against the pavement. He caught her in a hug that lifted her off the ground, laughing. There she is. Look at you, gave a whole speech and everything. Couldn't miss that. Bear was there, his beard now completely silver. Mama Joe, sporting new glasses. Tiny, Sketch, and several others she recognized. They'd kept their promise. Every spring, they rode through. Sometimes Lena saw them, sometimes she missed them due to school or other obligations. But they always came. How'd you know about today? She asked, pulling back to look at them. Paul called us, Mama Joe admitted. Said you were speaking and it was important. Like we'd miss it. You should have heard her, Paul called from the doorway, camera in hand. Brought half the room to tears. Lena reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. Inside was another bracelet, this one more sophisticated than the first she'd made, but still crafted from bike chain links, polished to a mirror shine. I made one for each of you, she said. I wanted to give them to you today. For keeping your promises. For coming back. For, her voice caught. For everything. Bear took his gently, his large hands careful with the delicate metalwork. Kid, you didn't have to. Yes, I did. Because you taught me that promises matter. That showing up matters. That people can choose to be good, even when the world makes it hard. Rex fastened his new bracelet beside the old one, the 2 chain link bands sitting side by side on his wrist. You know what I see when I look at you? He asked. What? Not someone we saved. Someone who learned to save herself and now helps others do the same. He nodded toward the community center. That speech in there? That's you keeping the road alive, Lena. Not by riding motorcycles, but by moving forward, by helping others find their way. That's what I meant. The group stood together in the parking lot as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Martha and Paul joined them, along with a few friends Lena had made over the years, kids from school, people from her volunteer work, faces that formed the constellation of her new life. You hungry? Bear asked. Because there's a diner about 10 miles north that makes the best pie you've ever tasted. Always hungry, Lena laughed. Then let's ride. This time, she didn't climb into a sidecar. She rode on the back of Rex's bike, arms wrapped around him, the wind whipping through her hair, her heart full of something she'd once thought impossible, hope. As they pulled onto the highway, the sun sinking behind them and the open road stretching ahead, Lena closed her eyes and listened. The roar of engines, once the soundtrack to her escape, had become something else entirely. The sound of freedom. The sound of family. The sound of promises kept. And as the road angels rode into the evening, their engines echoing across the valley, Lena smiled, because she finally understood what Rex had meant that first night. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was alive.